The city of Valora was alive with bright lights and tall towers that touched the clouds. People moved quickly along the streets, busy with their own lives, ignoring everything else around them. Above the city, in a quiet park that was almost hidden by the skyscrapers, a mama dragon paced nervously. Her golden scales glimmered under the sun, but today they looked dull and tired. Her wings twitched with worry, and her long tail left deep marks on the soft grass as she moved. She kept looking toward the research facility at the edge of the city. Inside, her baby was trapped in a strange, glowing chamber. The metal walls were thick and shiny, and the lights inside blinked in a pattern that made her feel sick with fear. The scientists inside were busy with their work, wearing crisp white coats, and they did not even notice the huge dragon outside. The mama dragon roared, a sound full of desperation, but the noise only frightened a few birds and made people step aside. No one came to help. Her heart pounded. She tried to push her way toward the entrance, but the guards stopped her. "Go back," one of them shouted. "This is a secure area. Dragons are dangerous." She lowered her head and shook it. She was not dangerous. She just wanted her baby. She tried to explain, using the soft, low tones that dragons use to communicate. "Please, my baby, my child is trapped." But the humans did not understand. They only shook their heads and walked away. The mama dragon's eyes filled with tears. She had never felt so helpless. Her child, small and fragile, was counting on her, and yet no one in the city seemed to care. She had seen humans rescue each other many times before, helping when someone was in danger. But now, when it was her child, no one helped her. She sat down on the grass, her wings folding over her back, and let out a deep, sorrowful roar that echoed through the streets. Some children nearby saw her and screamed. Adults hurried past, whispering to each other about how scary a dragon could be. The mama dragon felt a lump in her throat. She had protected her baby for only a few weeks, but already the city had shown her that it did not care about a dragon's life. She had nowhere to turn. Still, she did not give up. She tried the entrance again. She paced back and forth, trying to find another way in. Maybe if she could get closer, the humans would understand her. She looked at the tall walls of the facility, at the cameras that blinked down at her, at the guards who laughed and ignored her. Each time she tried, they told her to leave. Her scales shimmered with sadness and fear. Then, as she sat down for a moment, a small human figure appeared near the back of the building. Unlike the scientists and guards, he did not look busy or scared. He wore simple clothes, slightly dirty from work, and carried a mop and bucket. He stopped and looked at her. His eyes widened, not with fear but with curiosity. He tilted his head as if he could understand the sorrow in her gaze. The mama dragon perked up slightly. Could this human see her pain? She tried once more to roar softly, the tone of her voice trembling. She nudged closer to the edge of the park, hoping he would notice. The man did not run away. He just watched. For the first time that day, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe someone would help her. Maybe this one human could understand the love she felt for her baby. She could not stop pacing. Her tail swung back and forth, leaving long scratches on the ground. She breathed heavily, her chest rising and falling as she tried to control her fear. She whispered in dragon language, a soft, trembling sound, "Please, please help my baby." The humans inside the facility did not hear. The guards laughed and walked away. Only the janitor stood quietly, his eyes following her every move. The mama dragon tilted her head, feeling a tiny sense of trust she had not felt before. She did not know who he was or why he was different from the others, but she sensed kindness in him. The city moved on around them. Cars zoomed past, screens flashed with news, and people ignored the dragon pleading outside. But in that moment, in that small corner of the park, something had changed. A quiet, ordinary human was watching, and for the first time the mama dragon felt that maybe, just maybe, her baby could be saved. She stayed there for hours, pacing, waiting, hoping. Her golden scales caught the sunlight and reflected it like a small beacon. Every few minutes, she would look back at the glowing chamber in the facility, imagining her little baby's eyes looking at her, afraid and confused. She roared again, softer this time, a sound full of love and desperation. And the janitor remained there, silent, watching, thinking about what he could do to help. The mama dragon did not know it yet, but the impossible was about to happen. A simple human, overlooked and underestimated by everyone, was about to become the one who would answer her desperate plea. The janitor moved quietly along the back hallways of the facility. His mop squeaked softly on the shiny floor, and his footsteps were careful so no one would notice him. He had seen the dragon outside earlier, pacing and crying, and he could not stop thinking about it. Most people ignored the dragon, calling it a danger or a nuisance. But he could see the sorrow in its eyes. The way it bent its head, the way its tail twitched nervously, he felt something deep in his chest. He knew the dragon was a mother, desperate to save her child. He pushed his mop into a corner and sat down for a moment, thinking. The scientists inside the facility were brilliant, he knew, but they were busy with experiments and reports. They would never take the time to help a dragon, no matter how much it begged. The guards would never risk their jobs. But maybe he could do something. He was just a janitor, small and quiet, but he had hands that could fix things and a mind that could figure things out. He went back to his cleaning, but his eyes kept wandering to the security monitors. On one screen, the mama dragon was still pacing outside the park, wings folded over her back, her golden scales glowing softly in the sunlight. On another screen he could see the baby dragon trapped inside the glowing chamber. It was small, with shimmering silver scales, and it whimpered softly, looking around as if hoping someone would come. The janitor's heart ached. He stood up and looked around the empty hallway. No one was watching. The facility's main rooms were filled with scientists working on experiments, talking quickly, and typing on glowing keyboards. The janitor smiled faintly. He did not need their permission. He only needed a plan. He had fixed broken doors, loose wires, and machines that stopped working. He could figure out a way to open that chamber too. It would be hard, but he knew it was possible. He grabbed a small toolkit from the supply closet. It had screwdrivers, wires, and a few other simple tools. Nothing fancy, but it was enough. He moved carefully toward the area where the chamber was located. The hallways were quiet, and the janitor made sure to stay in the shadows. Cameras blinked above, but he remembered the paths he had seen before. He could avoid them. He could do this without anyone noticing. As he walked, he thought about the mama dragon outside. He had never met a dragon before. He had only heard stories about them, tales of fire-breathing monsters and dangerous creatures. But this dragon was different. It was scared and desperate, and all it wanted was to protect its baby. The janitor thought about his own family and how he would feel if someone ignored him in a moment of need. He clenched his fists. He could not let that happen here. Finally, he reached a small maintenance door that led close to the chamber. The air smelled faintly of machines and cleaning chemicals. He crouched down and looked through a small vent. Inside, the baby dragon was huddled in the corner of the chamber, looking lost. Its tiny wings were folded, and it let out a soft squeak. The janitor's heart tightened. He could not fail. He opened the door slowly and slipped inside. The lights were dimmer here, and the hum of machinery filled the air. He examined the chamber carefully. The walls were thick, glowing with strange energy patterns, and there were panels with buttons and switches. He did not understand all the science behind it, but he did not need to. He only needed to find a way to open it. The janitor took a deep breath and knelt beside the control panel. He started to work, using the tools in his hands. He rewired a small connection, pressed a few buttons in a specific order, and watched the lights on the chamber flicker. The baby dragon looked up curiously, sensing that something was happening. The janitor smiled softly, whispering to himself, "Almost there, almost there." Outside, the mama dragon's ears twitched. She stopped pacing and looked at the facility, sensing something different. A small hope grew inside her. She tilted her head, listening carefully, feeling that someone, somewhere, was trying to help. She had waited all day for a sign, and now she could feel it. The janitor continued to work, ignoring the fatigue in his arms. He was careful and patient, testing each wire, each switch. The glowing lights on the chamber blinked faster, then slowed, and finally, a soft click echoed through the room. The panel opened slightly. The janitor's heart leapt. He had done it. He had found a way. He looked at the baby dragon, who squeaked happily. The janitor whispered, "Don't worry. You'll be free soon." The dragon moved closer, sensing safety. The janitor's hands worked quickly, steady, and clever. He felt a deep satisfaction, not because he had done something impressive, but because he was helping someone who truly needed it. For the first time that day, the janitor felt proud. He was just a simple human, overlooked and small, but he had courage, empathy, and cleverness. And that, he knew, was enough to make a difference. He glanced at the security cameras again. They did not notice him. The scientists were still busy. The mama dragon was outside, pacing, still worried but feeling a spark of hope. The janitor smiled faintly, knowing the real challenge was about to begin. Opening the chamber completely and getting the baby to safety would not be easy. But he believed he could do it. He was determined. He had already taken the first step, and he could feel the impossible within reach. Outside, the mama dragon roared softly, a sound of hope rather than despair. The janitor paused and listened. He knew she was waiting. She had trusted him, a human nobody noticed, and he would not let her down. The baby dragon looked at him with shining eyes, sensing that help had finally arrived. And in that quiet, glowing room, the janitor understood something simple but powerful. Being small or ordinary did not matter. What mattered was the heart, the mind, and the courage to act when no one else would. He was ready for the next step. The janitor crouched beside the glowing chamber, his toolkit open beside him. He studied the metal walls and the blinking lights carefully. The machine was unlike anything he had seen before, but he knew he had to think like the machine, not like a human. Every wire, every panel, every button had a purpose, and he needed to find the one that would free the baby dragon. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. His hands were small but nimble, and he moved slowly so that no alarm would go off. One wrong move and the system could lock down completely. He examined the control panel again. There were buttons with strange symbols, levers that seemed delicate, and wires that ran like a spiderweb behind the walls. He didn't understand the science fully, but he understood problem solving. He took a deep breath and began testing the wires one by one. Some gave a small spark, others made the lights flicker. He noted the patterns carefully, memorizing which connections did what. He imagined himself as part of the machine, learning its rhythm, its weaknesses. It was slow work, but patience was his strength. He had cleaned this building for years. He knew that careful attention could solve almost anything. Outside the chamber, the baby dragon whimpered softly, its silver scales catching the dim light. It looked around nervously, flapping its tiny wings slightly. The janitor whispered, "Don't worry, little one. I'll get you out." The dragon tilted its head as if it understood. The janitor smiled faintly. That small trust gave him courage. He noticed a small panel near the bottom of the chamber that the scientists had overlooked. It was barely visible, hidden behind a maintenance cover. He pulled it open carefully. Inside were wires tangled like vines. He examined them and realized that a few simple connections could trick the chamber into unlocking. He took out his screwdriver and started to work. The sparks were tiny, almost like fireflies, but the lights on the chamber began to blink differently. The janitor paused and listened. He could hear the soft hum of energy, the quiet mechanical whirring of the machine. Each sound was a clue. He adjusted a wire here, pressed a button there. The lights flickered in patterns and the chamber responded slowly. It was almost as if it was alive, testing him. He smiled. He liked challenges. Hours seemed to pass, but in reality, it was only minutes. The janitor worked tirelessly, ignoring the ache in his hands and the sweat on his face. Every small movement mattered. One slip, one wrong wire, and the baby dragon could remain trapped. But he was determined. He had promised the mama dragon he would help, and promises even from humans were powerful. Outside the facility, the mama dragon paced nervously. She could sense that something was happening. She raised her head and sniffed the air. There was a change, a tiny vibration in the building, a faint glow in the distance. Her golden eyes brightened slightly. Could it be that someone had finally listened to her plea? She flapped her wings nervously, trying to stay close but hidden, ready to rush in if needed. Back inside, the janitor noticed a small lever labeled with strange symbols. It seemed unimportant, almost like a decoration, but he had learned to trust his instincts. Carefully he pulled it. A soft click echoed through the chamber. The lights changed again. The baby dragon squeaked and pressed against the glass as if it could feel freedom approaching. The janitor's heart leapt. He was closer than ever. He worked quickly now, his movements precise. He connected a final wire and pressed a series of buttons in order. The chamber buzzed loudly for a moment, lights flashing in green and blue. Then, slowly, a panel at the front slid open with a soft hiss. The baby dragon blinked in surprise and hopped forward cautiously. The janitor reached out a hand to guide it, and the dragon nuzzled him gently. His heart soared. But the real test was still ahead. The chamber was not fully open, and alarms could trigger if he moved too quickly. He examined the remaining locks, noting the small red lights that blinked threateningly. He whispered to the baby dragon, "Almost there. Stay calm." His hands worked with care, rewiring tiny circuits and pressing the remaining buttons. Sweat dripped from his forehead, and his heart pounded in his chest. Finally, the last lock clicked. The chamber's front fully opened, and the baby dragon stretched its wings, testing its freedom. The janitor stepped back, smiling, but he did not stop. He knew the mama dragon was waiting, and he had to return her child safely. He picked up the small dragon gently, feeling its tiny heartbeat against his hands. It was alive, it was safe, and it was ready to be returned to its mother. Outside, the mama dragon roared softly, a sound of hope rather than fear. She could feel her baby moving. Her golden scales shimmered brightly, catching the sunlight. She paced closer, careful not to scare anyone, watching the janitor emerge from the building with her baby cradled in his hands. Her eyes filled with tears and she lowered her head in gratitude. The janitor approached her slowly, keeping the baby safe. He whispered, "Here, it's safe now." The mama dragon tilted her head, nuzzling him gently, her way of saying thank you. He smiled softly, realizing that no one had to be a soldier or a scientist to do something extraordinary. Courage, kindness, and clever thinking were enough. For the first time that day, the janitor felt proud. He had done the impossible, freed a creature that no one else could save. And the mama dragon, once desperate and alone, could finally feel hope again. The mama dragon's heart pounded as she watched the janitor carefully carry her baby out of the glowing chamber. Her golden scales shimmered brightly in the afternoon sun, reflecting hope and relief. She lowered her massive head, trying not to scare him, and stepped closer. Her eyes were wide with anticipation and gratitude. The baby dragon wriggled slightly in the janitor's hands, but it stayed calm, sensing the safety nearby. The janitor moved slowly, keeping the baby cradled gently. He could feel its tiny heartbeat against his palms. Every step counted. The facility was quiet, but alarms could trigger if any sensors noticed unusual activity. He had avoided them so far, using his knowledge of the building and his careful planning. But now, his focus was on the baby dragon, on delivering it safely to its mother. The mama dragon lowered her wings slightly, creating a safe path. She let out a soft rumble, the sound of encouragement. The janitor nodded, understanding that this was the moment to complete the rescue. He stepped forward, carefully approaching the park outside the facility. The baby dragon's silver scales gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting golden streaks from its mother's shining scales. A few people walking nearby froze when they saw the huge mama dragon and the janitor carrying the baby. Whispers ran through the streets. "Is that a dragon?" one child asked. "And the human, he's not afraid?" someone else whispered. But the janitor did not notice. He only focused on the baby and the mother waiting just a few meters away. The mama dragon's eyes never left the janitor or her baby. Her wings trembled slightly with emotion. She had waited so long for this moment, worried every second that her baby might be lost forever. But now she could finally feel relief washing over her. She stepped forward, lowering her massive head so the baby could safely reach her. The janitor knelt carefully and extended the baby dragon toward its mother. The tiny creature squeaked in excitement and flapped its small wings. The mama dragon gently took her child with her muzzle, nuzzling it lovingly. The baby curled against her and the sound of happy squeaks filled the air. The janitor stepped back, smiling softly, feeling the quiet pride of having done something truly important. The people around stopped in awe, watching a scene they had never imagined. A human, ordinary and overlooked, had saved a dragon's life. A creature thought to be dangerous was reunited with its child, and everyone could feel the power of courage and empathy. The mama dragon lowered her wings fully now, letting the sunlight shine across her shimmering scales. She looked at the janitor with eyes full of gratitude and respect. It was not fear that she showed, it was understanding, a bond that needed no words. The janitor smiled and nodded. He did not need thanks or recognition. Seeing the mother and child reunited was enough. The mama dragon nuzzled him gently again, and he felt a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. It was not just pride, it was connection, trust, and the joy of helping someone who could not help themselves. The baby dragon squeaked happily, hopping around its mother's paws. The mama dragon roared softly, a sound of triumph, love, and relief. Birds flew from nearby trees, startled by the sound, but the humans watching stayed still, mesmerized. The city had ignored the dragon's cries before, but now they could see that hope, kindness, and courage could come from the most unexpected places. The janitor stood quietly watching the reunion. He had acted alone, without power, without fame, without permission. He had used only his mind, his hands, and his heart. And in doing so he had achieved what no one else had dared to try. The mama dragon and her baby were safe, and he had done the impossible. A soft breeze swept through the park, rustling the leaves and lifting the mama dragon's wings slightly. She nudged her baby toward the janitor once more as if to say thank you again. He smiled and stepped back, feeling a connection that went beyond words. In that quiet moment the city seemed smaller and yet more alive, filled with the power of courage, empathy, and hope. The mama dragon flapped her wings gently, picking up her baby and hovering above the park. She looked down at the janitor one last time. Her eyes were full of understanding and respect, the kind that only a creature who has experienced danger and fear could show. The janitor waved softly and she responded with a small nod, as if acknowledging that humans and dragons could share trust and friendship. The people who had been watching began to whisper to each other. Some ran to tell the story, some took pictures, but the janitor did not care. He had no need for attention. The feeling of knowing he had saved a life, of having made a difference, was more than enough. He had stepped up when no one else would. The mama dragon hovered a moment longer, then glided gently toward the outskirts of the city, carrying her baby safely. The janitor watched until they disappeared over the trees. His heart was light, full of joy and quiet pride. Today he had done something extraordinary, and the world, even if it did not notice, was better for it. As he packed up his toolkit and returned to his usual work, the janitor knew that life would continue as normal for most people, but something had changed. A small act of courage had bridged the gap between species, between fear and understanding, and it had shown that even an ordinary human could do something remarkable. And somewhere far above the city, a mother dragon and her baby were safe, alive and full of hope, all because one human had dared to act when no one else would. The city of Valora was quiet that evening, bathed in the soft glow of sunset. The streets were still busy with people heading home, but a small change had begun to ripple through the city. News of what had happened spread quietly at first. A story of a human who had helped a dragon, something no one thought possible. Whispers traveled through the alleys and market squares, growing into astonished conversations. The mama dragon and her baby had returned to a safe place on the outskirts of the city, a secluded valley where sunlight warmed the earth and the trees were thick and tall. The baby dragon leaped and flapped its wings, squeaking happily, while the mama dragon watched with eyes full of pride and love. She nuzzled her child gently, ensuring it felt safe and loved. For the first time in days she could rest without worry. The janitor returned to the facility, carrying his mop and bucket as if nothing extraordinary had happened. To the scientists and guards, he was just another worker quietly moving through the hallways. No one knew what he had done. No one understood the courage, the careful thinking, and the determination that had saved a life that day. But he did not need anyone's praise. The feeling of knowing he had made a difference was enough. As he walked through the facility, he caught glimpses of people glancing at him curiously. A young scientist paused mid-step and whispered to a colleague, "Did you see the human out there? The one with the dragon?" But no one asked him directly. The janitor smiled faintly to himself. That was fine. Some victories did not need an audience. Some acts of heroism were quiet and they were stronger for it. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the city with shades of gold and pink. The mama dragon and her baby played among the trees, wings glimmering in the last light. The valley was peaceful, filled with soft sounds of rustling leaves and chirping birds. The mama dragon raised her head, looking toward the city, and for a moment she thought about the human who had risked so much to save her child. She lowered her head in gratitude, sending a silent message of thanks that only the heart could understand. Word spread beyond the city. Children spoke excitedly about the dragons they had seen and the human who had helped them. Some adults shook their heads, thinking it impossible, but even they felt a sense of wonder. The story inspired people quietly, making them realize that courage and kindness could come from the most unexpected places. The janitor had shown them that being small or overlooked did not mean one could not do great things. In the facility, the janitor cleaned the floors as usual. His movements were calm and precise. Every sweep of the mop was ordinary, but inside, his mind replayed the events of the day. The mama dragon's eyes, the baby's soft squeaks, the feeling of holding a life in his hands, these memories were treasures he would carry forever. He did not need medals or recognition. He had touched a life and changed it forever. Days passed and the city began to change slowly. Scientists became more curious about dragons. They approached the valley cautiously, not to harm but to observe and learn. The mama dragon allowed them to see from a distance, curious but cautious. The humans began to understand that dragons were not simply creatures to fear. They were intelligent, emotional, and deserving of respect. Bridges began to form between the species little by little. The janitor continued his work quietly, but his life was no longer ordinary. Children waved at him in the streets, whispering that he was a hero. Some adults nodded respectfully, though they never knew the full story. He smiled at these gestures but remained humble. True courage, he knew, was not about recognition. It was about doing the right thing even when no one else would. In the valley, the mama dragon and her baby spent more time near the city, learning and watching the humans from a distance. The baby flapped its wings proudly, imitating the janitor's calm and careful movements. The mama dragon watched, teaching patience, trust, and the importance of kindness. She knew that humans, like her own species, could choose to do good or ignore suffering. The janitor had chosen good, and for that, he had earned her eternal respect. The city itself began to shift in its view of dragons. Where once there had been fear, now there was curiosity and admiration. People began to see that bravery and intelligence were not measured by size or strength but by heart and mind. The janitor had reminded them all that even the smallest actions could create the largest impact. As evening fell, the mama dragon nestled her baby between her wings. The valley was calm, the stars beginning to sparkle above. She lifted her head toward the city one last time, sending a final silent thanks to the human who had changed their lives. Somewhere in the city, the janitor finished his day's work and walked home quietly, the warmth of a good deed filling his heart. And in that moment, the world seemed a little brighter. The impossible had been done, not by weapons, not by power, but by a quiet human who believed in doing what was right. The bond between humans and dragons had begun, fragile but strong, and a new story of courage, hope, and empathy had been written for Velora. The janitor smiled to himself, knowing that life would continue. But somewhere far above the city, golden scales glimmered in the starlight, and silver wings fluttered happily. And he knew that, together, humans and dragons could face the future with respect, trust, and the knowledge that even the smallest of heroes could achieve the impossible.